Ladies and gentlemen, Steve Harvey. You know, sometimes in life we get so caught up in trying to hold on to people that we forget our own worth. We start thinking that if we beg a little harder, chase a little more, or lower our standards just a bit, maybe, just maybe they'll stay. But let me tell you something. Don't block him out of anger. Don't beg him out of fear. Just do this and watch what happens. Self-respect is one of the most powerful forces in human relationships, yet it is often the very thing people compromise first when they feel insecure, afraid, or desperate for connection. When you understand that self-respect is not just a personality trait, but a signal, an energy you carry, a boundary you set, a standard you hold, you begin to see that it directly influences the type of relationships you attract. A person who respects themselves communicates without words that they expect to be treated with care, honesty, and consistency. And people who cannot meet those expectations naturally fall away, while those who can step forward. This is why self-respect attracts better relationships. It filters your world for you. When you don't have self-respect, you tolerate too much. You tolerate mixed signals, disrespect, inconsistency, and behavior that chips away at your confidence little by little. You start accepting the bare minimum because you fear losing someone more than you fear losing yourself. But the moment you choose to value yourself, you change the dynamic completely. You stop negotiating with people who don't know what they want. You stop begging to be understood. You stop explaining why you deserve better because you begin to live in a way that proves it. Self-respect is silent, but incredibly loud at the same time. People with high self-respect don't need to announce their standards. Their actions speak. They return calls when they feel like it, not because they are playing games, but because they are not anxiously waiting for somebody else to validate their day. They don't chase after someone who ghosts them because they understand that disappearing is an answer in itself. They don't argue endlessly with someone who refuses to listen because they know their peace is too expensive to waste on the unprepared. They walk away when actions don't match words because they recognize inconsistency as a red flag, not a puzzle to solve. This quiet confidence draws healthier people toward them. Those who appreciate accountability, honesty, and emotional maturity. In romantic relationships especially, self-respect is magnetic. When someone sees you honoring your own feelings, standing by your boundaries, and keeping your standards firm, they naturally approach you with more care, not because you're intimidating, but because they recognize that you take yourself seriously, and they must do the same if they want to be part of your life. On the other hand, when you constantly bend your boundaries for someone, you teach them exactly how to treat you. If you allow broken promises, they'll break more. If you tolerate disrespect, it will escalate. If you chase after someone who pulls away, they'll keep pulling, not because they are necessarily cruel, but because you've shown them there are no consequences. Self-respect also reshapes your emotional world. When you honor yourself, you no longer depend on someone else's attention for your happiness. You don't panic when they take too long to respond. You don't crumble when they express a different opinion. You don't feel threatened by space or independence. Your sense of worth comes from within, not from the affection or approval of another person. And that internal stability creates a healthier, more secure dynamic. You give love more freely, not in a desperate way, but in an abundant, confident way. You're not afraid someone will leave because you know you'll still be whole if they do. People often underestimate how attractive emotional independence is. It doesn't mean you don't care. It means you care deeply, but you never sacrifice your identity or dignity to maintain a connection. You bring your full self into the relationship, your passions, your goals, your strengths, rather than shrinking or pretending just to keep someone close. You become a partner, not a shadow. And that balance creates stronger relationships built on mutual respect, not fear. Self-respect also teaches you patience. You stop jumping into relationships because you're lonely and start waiting for alignment, not just chemistry. You realize that not everyone should have access to your heart. You become more selective, not picky, but intentional. And when you become intentional, your relationships improve naturally. You choose people who value communication. You choose people who are emotionally available. You choose people who show interest consistently, not just when it's convenient. You choose people who see you clearly, not through the lens of their own insecurity. Choosing yourself doesn't push good people away. It pushes the wrong people away. The ones who remain are those who see your self-respect as something to honor, not something to challenge. But the most beautiful part of self-respect is how it transforms the relationship you have with yourself. You begin to enjoy your own company. You pursue goals that once felt impossible. You maintain your health, physical, emotional, and mental. You learn to say no without guilt. You learn to say yes without fear. You stop apologizing for having needs or standards. You realize that you don't need to be perfect to deserve love. You only need to be authentic. The more aligned you become with your true self, the more aligned your relationships become as well. Self-respect is not about being cold, distant, or unapproachable. It's not about acting superior or refusing vulnerability. It's about knowing your value so deeply that you no longer seek approval from people who cannot recognize it. It's about showing up for yourself first so that you can show up for others in a healthier, more sustainable way. It's about choosing peace over chaos, clarity over confusion, and dignity over desperation. And when you live that way, better people come, better love comes, and better life comes. In the end, self-respect is not just an attitude, it's a magnet. It draws in what matches your worth and repels what doesn't. And the moment you decide you deserve more, the universe begins to rearrange everything to prove you right. Personal growth is often misunderstood as a slow, private journey that has little to do with relationships or emotional experiences. But in reality, it is one of the most powerful and transformative responses you can choose when you face rejection. When someone pulls away, when a connection fades, or when you feel unwanted or unseen, it is natural to react with hurt, confusion, or even desperation. But the moment you shift your focus from, why didn't they choose me, to how can I choose myself better, everything begins to change. Rejection becomes less of a wound and more of a wake-up call, a signal pointing you toward a version of yourself you may have neglected. Personal growth is powerful because it interrupts the cycle of chasing validation from people who have already shown you they cannot or will not give it. Instead of obsessing over what went wrong, you redirect that energy inward towards something you can control, your evolution. You begin to understand that someone walking away does not mean you are not enough. It means that their role in your story has ended, and a new chapter is waiting for you to grow into it. Growth shifts your perspective from loss to opportunity. It teaches you that the end of one relationship often creates space for better ones, and that pain can be an incredible motivator for transformation. When you choose growth, you choose to look at your patterns honestly. You start asking yourself real questions, questions that strengthen you rather than weaken you. Why did I ignore certain signs? Why did I settle for less than what I needed? Why did I feel the need to prove my worth to someone else? These questions are not meant to punish you, but to free you. Because when you understand yourself deeply, you become stronger, wiser, and less likely to repeat the same emotional mistakes. Rejection becomes information. It becomes direction. Personal growth also shifts how you view your time and energy. Instead of wasting hours checking your phone for messages that never come, replaying conversations, or wondering how you could make someone stay, you start investing in yourself. You begin rediscovering parts of your identity that you may have abandoned while trying to keep a relationship alive. You pick up goals you put on hold. You explore hobbies you forgot you loved. You strengthen friendships, focus on your health, or build the career you always imagined. This shift not only brings you fulfillment, but also changes the way you carry yourself. Confidence grows, clarity grows, peace grows. You become more grounded because your life is no longer centered around someone else's opinion of you. Growth also helps you detach from the fear of being alone. Many people cling to unhealthy relationships because they fear emptiness. But when you pour your energy into developing your skills, EXP, ending your mind and nurturing your dreams, you realize that solitude is not a punishment. It's a powerful space for rebuilding yourself. You begin to feel comfortable in your own presence. You stop accepting crumbs just to avoid an empty table. You learn that being alone while growing is far better than being with someone who stunts your potential. One of the most empowering effects of personal growth is how it transforms your standards. The more you grow, the less tolerance you have for inconsistency, dishonesty, or emotional immaturity. You recognize red flags earlier, and instead of trying to fix people or prove yourself, you allow misaligned connections to fall away. You no longer chase because you understand that anything you have to beg for will never feel secure. Growth teaches you that rejection is not always a loss. It is often a form of protection, steering you away from what would have drained you in the long run. Growth also changes what you attract. When you heal, evolve, and elevate, your energy shifts. You no longer vibrate at the level of desperation or insecurity. People notice the change in you, not because you're acting different, but because you've become different. You speak with more intention. You carry yourself with more dignity. You move with more purpose. And suddenly, the type of people who once overlooked you no longer have access to you. You become drawn to deeper connections, relationships with people who communicate openly, value your time, and reciprocate your efforts. Personal growth attracts partners who are ready for the version of you that is whole, not the version trying to convince someone to stay. Another powerful aspect of growth is emotional resilience. When you grow, rejection no longer crushes you the way it used to. It may still hurt, but it doesn't derail you. You become more capable of handling disappointment because you built a solid foundation within yourself. You understand that someone not choosing you does not define your destiny. You understand that endings are not failures. They are transitions. With growth comes patience, strength, and the ability to trust that what is meant for you will never require you to sacrifice your self-worth. Personal growth also restores your sense of self. Many people lose themselves in relationships, changing their personality, silencing their needs, or molding themselves to fit someone else's expectation. But growth brings you back to yourself. You learn to speak up, to protect your energy, and to listen to your intuition. You become more aligned with your identity, which naturally leads to healthier connections in the future. When you know who you are, you no longer fear rejection because you know you have something valuable to offer, whether others choose it or not. In the end, personal growth is the most powerful response to rejection because it transforms the narrative. Instead of feeling discarded, you feel redirected. Instead of feeling powerless, you feel in control. Instead of feeling unworthy, you feel inspired. Growth turns pain into progress, confusion into clarity, and endings into beginnings. It teaches you that rejection doesn't diminish you, it reveals you. And when you evolve, your life evolves with you. Boundaries are one of the most essential yet misunderstood parts of building healthy relationships and protecting your peace. Many people think boundaries are walls meant to keep others out, but in reality, they are doors. Doors that you control, that you open and close based on what aligns with your emotional well-being, your values, and your self-respect. Boundaries are not about controlling someone else's behavior. They are about controlling what you are willing to allow in your life. When you learn to set boundaries clearly and confidently, something powerful happens. Your value rises, not just in the eyes of others, but in your own. Boundaries begin with understanding yourself. You cannot protect what you do not recognize, and you cannot communicate what you have not defined. When you feel drained, anxious, or resentful, it's often a sign that a boundary has been crossed, either by someone else or by your own tendency to ignore your needs. Many people override these emotions, telling themselves to be more patient, more forgiving, or more flexible. But ignoring those signals is like ignoring the warning lights on a dashboard. The problem doesn't go away, it intensifies. Boundaries start with listening to those signals and honoring your emotional truth. When you implement boundaries, you send a message to the world about how you expect to be treated. People who genuinely care about you will adjust. They will listen. They will respect your needs even if they don't fully understand them right away. People who become angry or defensive when you set boundaries are often the people who benefited from your lack of them. Boundaries don't push the right people out. They push the wrong people out. They filter your relationships so you can experience deeper connection with those who are emotionally mature enough to meet you with respect. One of the most important aspects of boundaries is that they prevent you from slipping into situations where your dignity is compromised. Without boundaries, it becomes easy to tolerate mixed signals, to accept apologies with no change behavior, to engage in conversations that undermine your confidence, and to remain in relationships that take more from you than they give. Boundaries protect you from becoming a version of yourself that is resentful, exhausted, insecure, or emotionally shaky. By saying, "I won't allow this," you are not being difficult. You are being loyal to yourself. Boundaries also teach others how to interact with you. They provide clarity. When you say, "I don't accept disrespect," or "I need consistency to feel secure," or "I won't engage in arguments that attack my character," you establish expectations that prevent miscommunication and misunderstanding. People feel safer around those who have boundaries because they know where they stand. Healthy individuals appreciate this clarity. They feel honored that you trust them enough to articulate your needs. Boundaries create emotional stability, not only for you, but also for those you connect with. Many people fear setting boundaries because they equate them with rejection or conflict. They worry people will leave if they assert themselves. But here's the truth. Anyone who leaves because you established a healthy boundary was never meant to stay in the first place. Their exit is a blessing, not a loss. Boundaries reveal motives. A person who respects you will appreciate your honesty. A person who doesn't will reveal their true intentions the moment you stop bending for them. And that revelation protects you from investing in relationships that were never meant to grow. Another powerful impact of boundaries is how they transform your self-image. When you enforce your boundaries, you build trust with yourself. You learn that you can rely on yourself to walk away when necessary, to speak up when needed, and to prioritize your well-being even in difficult moments. This strengthens your sense of identity. You begin to feel more grounded, more confident, and more secure because you know you are no longer abandoning yourself to keep peace with others. Boundaries also create space for self-care. They protect your time, energy, and emotional reserves. You begin to understand that you cannot pour from an empty cup and that constantly showing up for others while neglecting yourself is not generosity, it's self-sacrifice. Boundaries allow you to give without depleting yourself. They help you build a life where your relationships, responsibilities, and personal needs are balanced rather than competing foe. Your attention, when boundaries are in place, your relationships improve dramatically. Communication becomes clearer, conflicts become less destructive, and mutual respect becomes the foundation instead of an afterthought. You attract people who appreciate who you are, not who you pretend to be. You create relationships where emotional giving is mutual, not one-sided. You learn to love without losing yourself. Another life-changing element of boundaries is how they reshape your reactions. Instead of spiraling emotionally when someone treats you disrespectfully, you respond with calm clarity. Instead of begging someone to change, you change the access they have to you. Instead of trying to prove your worth, you withdraw your time, your energy, and your presence. This shift is profoundly empowering. It signals to the world and to yourself that you are no longer available for experiences that diminish your spirit. Boundaries also protect your future. They prevent you from repeating old mistakes, falling into familiar emotional traps, or attracting the same unhealthy patterns. When you set a boundary, you are choosing a healthier path for your future self. You're breaking cycles of people-pleasing, self-neglect, and emotional dependency. You are creating a new standard that elevates every aspect of your life, from your friendships and relationships to your career and personal goals. In the end, Boundaries raise your value because they prove that you understand your worth. They show that you are willing to protect your peace, even at the cost of disappointing others. They reveal your strength, your clarity, and your commitment to honoring yourself. And when you live your life with firm, loving boundaries, you don't just gain better relationships. You gain freedom, stability, and a deeper sense of inner peace that no one can take away. Choosing action over desperation is one of the most transformative decisions a person can make, especially when navigating relationships, heartbreak, or emotional uncertainty. Desperation creates a mindset where you believe that your happiness depends on someone else's presence, attention, or approval. It makes you react instead of reflect. It causes you to overextend, overgive, overapologize, and overwrite your own needs in the hope that someone else will fill an emotional void. But when you shift from desperation to action, you reclaim your personal power. You stop waiting for someone else to choose you, and you start choosing yourself in ways that change everything about how life responds to you. Action is the decision to move forward, even when your heart is hurting and your mind is replaying memories. It is the intentional choice to do something that contributes to your growth rather than something that weakens your spirit. When someone pulls away, ignores your messages, or treats you as an option, desperation says, try harder, keep chasing, prove your worth. But action says, pause, breathe, redirect your energy. Desperation makes you cling tightly because you fear losing something. Action makes you open your hand because you trust that what is meant for you cannot be taken. When you choose action, you begin to see that your life is bigger than the person who walked away. You discover that you have dreams, goals, and potentials that were waiting for your attention. You start pouring your energy into building yourself rather than trying to hold on to someone who doesn't recognize your value. Action is enrolling in a class, hitting the gym, diving into your passion, organizing your life, improving your mindset, or working on your emotional healing. It's choosing progress, not paralysis. And when you focus on progress, your confidence rises in ways that make old patterns lose their power over you. Choosing action over desperation also changes the energy you project. People can feel when you are clinging to them to fill a void. It creates pressure, imbalance, and emotional discomfort. But when you are focused on your own development, you become more secure, more grounded, and more at peace. You stop demanding things from others that you should be giving yourself. You become magnetic, not because you chase, but because you stand tall. People are naturally drawn to those who have a quiet sense of certainty and direction in their lives. Action builds that certainty, desperation destroys it. Another powerful aspect of choosing action is that it breaks emotional dependency. Many people remain stuck because they tie their entire identity to the presence of another person. When that person withdraws, their world collapses. But action teaches you that your world continues regardless of who leaves. It teaches you that healing is something you can influence, not something you must wait helplessly for. When you shift your focus to improving yourself, you begin to build emotional independence. You train your mind to look inward for stability, not outward for reassurance. This creates a firm foundation that no relationship disappointment can shake. Action also rewires your emotional patterns. When you choose to act on your own behalf instead of pleading for someone to stay, you learn to break habits of chasing, over-explaining, or settling. You begin to respond to distance with dignity instead of desperation. You stop texting 5 times in a row to make someone care. You stop trying to convince someone that you are worth loving. You stop accepting emotional crumbs. Instead, you redirect that energy toward bettering yourself. This shift sends a subtle but powerful message to the universe. I am ready for something healthier, and life responds. When you take action, you also gain clarity. Distance reveals truth. Silence reveals intentions. When you stop chasing, you allow situations to unfold honestly. You see who reaches out. You see who puts in effort. You see who notices your absence and who never cared to begin with. Action provides space for the truth to come forward, while desperation blurs your perception with fear and fantasy. The more you step into action, the more you protect yourself from illusions and emotional manipulation. Choosing action doesn't mean you ignore your emotions. It means you honor them in a healthier way. You can cry, feel disappointed, reflect deeply, and acknowledge the pain while still moving forward. Healing is not passive. It requires steps, even small ones. Action may be as simple as journaling your thoughts, cleaning your environment, talking to a friend, or taking a walk to clear your mind. Every small step is a message to yourself that you are prioritizing your well-being. And those small steps accumulate into tremendous personal transformation. Action also changes what you attract in the future. When you grow, reset your standards, and rebuild your confidence, your relationships automatically evolve. You stop being drawn to people who create emotional instability. You stop tolerating mixed signals. You stop falling for potential instead of reality. You begin attracting people who value effort, communication, consistency, and respect, because your actions show that you value these things yourself. Life tends to match your energy. When your energy is desperate, you attract chaos. When your energy is intentional, you attract stability. One of the strongest effects of choosing action is how it transforms your narrative. Instead of saying, "He left me," you start saying, "I rediscovered myself." Instead of saying, "I don't know what to do," you say, "I'm building myself step by step." You reclaim your position as the author of your story. And once you step into that role, you stop giving supporting characters main character power over your life. Choosing action over desperation doesn't just change how others see you, it changes how you see yourself. You begin to recognize your strength, not as something you pretend to have, but as something you cultivate. You realize that your power was never in trying to make someone stay. It was in showing yourself that you can rise, grow, and thrive regardless of who leaves. And when you carry that kind of strength, life responds with opportunities, connections, and experiences that align with your elevated sense of self-worth. When you choose action, the world opens up for you. Opportunities appear, confidence grows, peace returns, and suddenly, the thing you thought you couldn't live without becomes just a chapter in a story that is still unfolding beautifully.